Somebody said her there. She talks just like you and I are talking right now. When she's but brilliant. Absolutely.
Check. 1 2 2 2. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. 1 2 1 2. It's on.
Better to flip them in than slide them in.
Hey, Brooke. Good, how are you? Hey, Mike. Great. Alan. Sir.
Kim.
Hello, sir.
So I got some NOUs from your phone.
I see.
If they have to sign them yet.
Hello, sir. How you doing there? Hanging in there. Hey, buddy, how you doing? What's going on? Good to see you. Good, good.
So I may have to draft up.
Thank you.
We always start our meetings at 7 p.m. sharp. We're waiting for two commissioners who are now arriving in the doorway as I speak. Thank you, gentlemen.
How you doing, everybody?
Call to order Kent County Levy Court Committee meeting, Kent County Administrative Complex, 555 Bay Road, Dover, Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. Levy Court Chamber Room 203 at 7:01, which is unusual. Usually it's 7 o'clock sharp. Mr. Petimage.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a committee meeting of Levy Court. I just want to remind the commissioners and guests who may be joining us via the teleconference line that we are recording the meeting, and this is a meeting that's being held in public here at the county building. Any callers who wish to participate during the appropriate time for public comment, we will ask that you press *1 on your phone, and we'll be able to recognize you and let you into the meeting room to present any comments or questions to the commissioners that you may have at that time on the agenda. As an official proceeding of the Levy Court, all rules of engagement for Levy Court committee meetings are in effect, along with the Mason's Rules of Order. Mr. President, turn the floor back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petimage. And for the record, let's say we have 7 commissioners present, along with the county administrator. And at this time, which is somewhat out of order, but I think it's important, that we recognize a moment of silence for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice for the United States of America. All rise. Well deserved. First item under public safety, Mr. Pepper.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have one item under Public Safety Committee tonight. It's the West Kent County Paramedic Substation construction bid results and recommendation. And we have Chief Colin Faulkner here tonight, and Kevin Sipple, Assistant Director of Public Safety, and Mike Petimage, the County Administrator. And this has been in the works now for a little over 2 years since the idea was first brought about. And hopefully we can get something moving on this so we can break ground, so we can better serve the citizens on the west side of county, out around Hartley, Maridale, and Points West. So, Chief, I guess you're going to start out and we'll move around from there.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. And yes, in response to your comments, this is timely. We continually monitor the statistics for that area. And, you know, one of the reasons that the Commissioners elected to move out into the West Kent County area is because we were trending downward. We were starting to show downward trends. And that is held to be true, even more so now. So this is actually timely that we're this far in the process. But just to recap where we've been, of course, in 2018, the property was discovered, that purchase was made, and also after a while, an additional purchase was made to an adjacent property. We did a public bid request for engineering, architectural engineering services in April 23rd, 2019, and of course that was won by Fisher Architect. And the review team, we received 3 bid packages for this project, 2 from Delaware, 1 from Maryland, and the review team consisted of myself, Mike Pedemonge, Kevin Sipple, John Tinger, and Susan Dorham. And we each evaluated the review packages separately, and then concurrently, Fisher Architects also reviewed it, so we were never really together. We did meet to discuss it as a team, as a Kent County team. But we did receive 3 packages, and they were publicly opened on April 12th, 2020 at 2 p.m.
August 12th.
I'm sorry. Yep, August 12th. My glasses keep falling around. So anyway, and then we received 3 bids, and they are detailed as follows. Green Diamond Builders Incorporated, which is $792,434. McKenzie Contracting Company, it's Limited Liability Corporation, $1,199,000. Then Richard Y. Johnson and Son Incorporated for $994,900. Our staff spent considerable time reviewing the bids and developing, a score for the 3 bidders. And for our end, for the Kent County end, the aggregate score, and we aggregated these scores for Green Diamond Builders was 77.2. For McKenzie Contracting was 62.2, and Richard Y. Johnson and Son, the aggregate score was 84.4. And on your package, in your package, you should also have the comments for the review by Fisher Architect of the 3 bidders that we had for this project. And they also recommended Richard Y. Johnson with some acknowledgments there, but so, our review team, we reviewed the bid package based on our scope of knowledge, based on our backgrounds. And we arrived at Richard Johnson as being the top scorer. Fisher Architect, who has the resources, the levels of understanding to really dig deep and get into the weeds of the bid package and things of that nature. They too also recommended Richard Johnson. So going from the consensus of all these scores, we have a recommendation that the bid be awarded to Richard Johnson for $994,000 and $994,900.
Any questions? Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Commissioner Pepper. With the Fisher review, did that happen concurrently after the county reviewed it or before the county reviewed the bids?
It probably happened in the last segment of our review, the way it was sent out. The package was slightly delayed getting to Fisher, the actual bid packages for them to look at. A slight hiccup there, but what we had done is kind of met as a team and discussed. We really couldn't grade anything at the time because we didn't have all the references done and things of that nature. What we did was took the scoring sheet, the data set that we were supposed to evaluate the bids on, and we each did that independently.
Okay, did Fisher's results come back in time for county personnel to look at before you finalized your review scores?
I'm sorry, say again?
Did the Fisher recommendations come back in prior to, because was that part of the consideration? Did we look at what they sent back before we finalized our scores?
No, we had arrived at our scores. We really didn't know what Fisher Architecture was going to come back at. We had arrived at our scores, and actually, I think we were still discussing, doing aggregate scoring because of the way we evaluated the bid results. But it's. When we did, I'm trying to think back now. When we did our scoring, we didn't have Fishers. We didn't have Fishers at the time. We were actually waiting for that. Is that your recollection, Mike?
Yep.
That is. I mean, I've been looking at these things so long, it's bouncing across. But yes, that would be the chronology of how it unfolded.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, Chief? Commissioner Buxton?
I don't know if Commissioner Ames is going to ask if I'm going to, no? Well, maybe we would, okay. So at the end of this, then there's a suggestion to move forward. Is that correct, Mr. Pepper? All right, then I want to understand better what exactly was just stated there. But Fisher, is that right? The architect,
Yes.
architectural firm, who I think indicated that all three were suitable contractors. Is that fair?
Yes.
All three. None of them were identified as being insufficient.
That's correct.
And we didn't use their recommendation to create the number that was made in advance. I didn't understand that line of question. I didn't know that. And I mean no disrespect, but, of course, Chief Faulkner, if we're in front of us, right, then if you're going to ask me to vote on something, then I'm going to take a look at it, right? I'm going to ask a few questions. And the obvious one that stands out is that we have a bidder in Kent County who's over $200,000 less than the winning bid. So it jumps out to mind, if we have a bidder in Kent County, are they disqualified because they can't handle the job? And if that's the case, then let's move away from them. But if we have, a professional audit, we'll call it, who indicated they're capable of doing the job, and then I look at that. I've been concerned with the property all along, obviously. I mean, I expressed concerns when we bought the property. I thought we should have bought new, a blank slate. We should have built new. That was when I think it was going to be $700,000, including the land, and now it's over $1 million without the land. Now, there's costs associated with delays. I get it. The economy changes. I get all that. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but again, I'm defending my vote and my concern for moving to the higher bidder. And so I'll summarize by saying, I guess I don't even need to really summarize by saying anything other than I was hoping to have a little more conversation. I'm more inclined to support the local bid that has been deemed sufficient. It does not appear to me in the review that there's any fatal flaw from their bid. I do understand that there's a level of comfort in going with the bid proposed, but I don't know if that's a fair discrediting of the lower bid. So that's it. I don't want to ramble. I'm not going to hijack the conversation. I just think it matters to have a little bit of a conversation. That's all. Thanks.
Mr. Angel?
Thank you, Mr. Pepper. One of the things that I've learned over the years when I've dealt with either school construction or construction here, there's always change orders. And change orders means more money. So we're at $994,000 with this one company, and the other company here that's local also is $200,002 cheaper. That's a heck of a lot of change orders to be fit in if something should apply. So I know our staff did their job, and we've always taken the lower bidder unless it's been something I think it's only been done one other time, unless it was done something that where you're trying to keep the business in Delaware at a lower cost and keep our people employed. Having said that, I know Diamond Builders is local, and they want to keep their people employed too. So I also have a concern based on 994,000, and we know there's change orders that will be coming forth that will take us over the amount. And there's a long amount of money between 792 and 994. So I have an issue with that. Just want to get it on record.
Mr. Buxton?
Just wanted to comment. So I'm curious, because in our packet, I do see we don't need a detailed report of the numbers each individual put forth, right? We have a summary of it, and that's fine. But I was curious with sharing, maybe if it's relevant, if tonight's vote gets impacted by it, I would like to see maybe is there a summary of the Fisher report?
Of the Fisher.
Did I miss it? Is it in the packet and I didn't
Should
read
be
it?
attached to your package, should look like this.
It's in here. So this okay, so I read that incorrectly then. So I have read that. I did read that. I didn't see the Michael. I thought that was a summary from us. My bad. So, yes. That's good, so that helped me.
Mr. Hall?
Thanks, Mr. Pepper. Well, just to follow up on Commissioner Buxton's point, it was good to have the Fisher recommendation in here, but it would have been nice to have the aggregate score from the county side too, to see. You mentioned the numbers tonight, and I happened to get those numbers from Susan Durham earlier today to look at myself, but I had to dig and request those numbers to see, how did we score it, how did they score it, what were the differences, what were the similarities. So, just for the future. Anyway, thanks.
Just to clarify that, because again, I did in fact read this one. It was a copy of it, so it wasn't, of course it was a copy, but it was my own copy, so it was kind of diminished, but I am familiar with the scores and the calculations of those. I don't want to get into the what ifs of, where they scored the least and it had to do with request for information and why there wasn't a request for information, and it had to do with the sharing of questions, I guess, and when questions were asked and the information was then given, the answers, that was then shared, and so that maybe that diminished the return response on any other questions. So, but I don't know, I've talked long enough. Let's see what we need to do.
Any other questions? Mr. Howe?
I don't know if this helps matters or not, but the packet we have here does comment on what has been mentioned in the last couple of minutes. And it says down at the bottom, page 2, during the review period of bid documents, Green Diamond Builders did not send any requests for information related to the contract documents. As their bid is currently the lowest value, their understanding of the drawings may be subject to questions. However, they were copied on all response letters distributed to the approved bidding parties. So I'm just wondering why they didn't respond, and is that an indication that we shouldn't trust them?
The understanding that I got, because I read that earlier and asked the question, is that the other two applications asked a total of 6 questions that were returned to all 3 bidders with the responses. So unless they were going to ask something new, maybe it wasn't relevant. Because I did read that. I did read that earlier, as I stated. I didn't recognize that that was the Fisher thing. So that was the answer to that. If you're asking me, I don't know if you were asking me or not.
I was just calling it to everybody's attention. Are you saying that we don't have enough, really enough information to vote on this tonight?
Just having a conversation.
No, I'm
sitting
asking
at the table.
everybody, really, because if we need more information, we're talking about a lot of money here. Is it urgent that we pass this tonight, or pass it on to a business meeting, or could we table it for later discussion?
Mr. Howe, what other information would you want?
And I would want whatever specific reason why they didn't choose the low bidder. Because typically we do go with the low bidder. You know that, of course. But I know there can be some valid reasons for not going with the low bidder. Like once before, there was one public works project that we did not go with the lowest bidder because the lowest bidder had done a sorry job on a previous.
Mr. Pettimaj, you want to weigh in?
I could try to explain that. I may not explain it to your satisfaction, but I can explain it. With this process, there were 5 metrics that were published and known to everyone that we were going to be measuring the bidders against, not just price. Because unlike buying a car that comes mass-produced and you can buy 10 of the same exact vehicles, construction is different. Construction is site-specific, building-specific. And so one of the metrics was qualifications and expertise. So each of the bidders was measured on their level of qualifications for the project and their expertise in doing all the facets of the project. Experience with similar projects was a second metric. Each one was evaluated against, have they done a similar project to this, such as a public safety building, which is a specialty building. The third metric was accuracy and conformity with the plan specifications that were produced by our architect. So our architect particularly is interested in that, making sure that the bids reflect a completeness with respect to their architectural drawings and specifications. We had the fourth metric was professional references. And so each bidder submitted, I think we asked for 5 professional references. The staff took 3 of those 5 from each of the bidders and contacted them and asked the same questions of every reference, and then recorded those responses. And then the 5th was fee proposal. So it wasn't the only thing we considered. Fee was worth 30 points out of 100. So what Colin's reporting to you tonight is the collective of the team, the 5 staff members that you have that did this evaluation, we have evaluated them independently against those metrics. Then submitted them to Colin. He aggregated them, he aggregated the scores, and what we're reporting to you is that Richard Y. Johnson had the highest score. Okay? So that's basically what we're reporting to you is we have a high score, we have a middle score, and we have a low score. And Richard Y. Johnson scored the highest based on our collective review. Independent to us was your architect reviewing it. And they came to the same conclusion as we did. They scored it, I mean, they didn't use the score sheets that we did or whatever, but their summary memo says the same, essentially the same. So that's really what was measured. It wasn't just price. If we were buying a Ford F-150 pickup, we would definitely shop low price because we say the specs and they meet the specs, we get the lowest price. A little different with the building construction because it's site-specific and building-specific. And you know, this property, as Commissioner Buxton alluded to, is you know, it's an existing site that has had some challenging history to it. So it's not a clear field building site. So anyway, that's why it's not just based on price. Ours was just who scored the highest. That's all I can tell you at this point.
Any questions? Commissioner Sweeney?
Thanks, Commissioner Pepper. So, Chief, the aggregate score of the Green Diamond and the aggregate score of McKenzie was 18 out of a possible 40. And the aggregate score of R.Y. Johnson was 34 out of a possible 40. Was the Fisher, did we get the scores from Fisher?
They evaluated from their own perspective. I think Mike was just kind of alluding to that, and we used the 5 metric, the metrics that we had that was in our bid package to the bidders. And quite frankly, the metrics that we use is while they're very, very good, Fisher looks upon this way deeper than just what we create, because we're really not experts in the field. We rely heavily on people who are talented in that direction to make right decisions for us, and I think Fisher has achieved that.
So the response from Fisher was they thought R.Y. Johnson was the contractor to go with, but they didn't tell you how much better R.Y. Johnson was than the other two that had submitted bids.
No, they did not.
Okay. You know, I understand, Mike, where you're coming from with construction. I've been involved with a lot of construction projects through schools and through the college. We've worked with R.Y. Johnson. They're very responsive, and I know that that was none of the questions that were asked with, you know, how responsive they are to changes. I mean, I realize sometimes change orders come with a price, but also some change orders come with a reduction price if it's necessary. So I don't have a problem with the R.Y. Johnson.
Mr. Park.
This sheet, right? It's the Fisher sheet. The back sheet with the scores. That's also the Fisher scores?
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
I don't have.
Well, that's why I'm cattywampus.
Can I approach you, sir?
That's okay. I just wanted to explain
Okay.
the ridiculousness of my asking for the report from Fisher. This is just a memo. It doesn't go into the details of where they came to their conclusion. It just says that after reviewing it, they agree that R.Y. Johnson is the correct bidder. Now, if this is actually the report, that's helpful. And that's okay. I'm not, you know what I need to do? I'm not overcooking it anymore. I just wanted to clarify that because I felt a little silly a few minutes ago. That's all. I think that Mike clearly explained himself. I think the folks that took the time to put together the score are not wrong. I think I'm not wrong for questioning it and maybe having a different opinion. I think that the R.Y. Johnson is an extremely safe bet. They do a great job. Okay, I just feel like the Diamond Group wasn't disqualified for any measure that would lead me away from them at this time. That's it. So I'll stop. But I do feel better now after reading.
Mr. Angel.
Thank you, Commissioner Pepper. Reading in between the lines, I understand what Mr. Pettimar said too, but once again, I got to go back to the low bid, where on the back it says, do not fall consistently within the government-private sector. However, the examples are more compatible to the proposed EMS project than the other two submissions. It says note similar amenities to those noted to include EMS. But when you look at what they've done in the past in this area compared to the one we're selecting, there's a vast difference. And you know, I'm still like to go the low bid. I still like the fact that you know, change orders are going to mount and they're local, and so I'm still having a kind of an issue with not going with Diamond Builders. That's what we've always done, and based on they're all good companies, just that the bidding's different on all three, which is what we always ask for. So I just want to bring that back up. Thank you.
Anybody else want to repeat anything?
Mr. Pepper? Very briefly, we spent a few dollars with Fisher to do this job and securing these bids for us. And certainly, I agree with Commissioner Buxton. There's certainly some questions that could be asked. But at this juncture, I think with the report we got from Fisher, and then the evaluation that we had with the county administrator and his team, and it came out that R.Y. Johnson was successful in the fact that they met all the criteria. I think that that's the route that we should be taking. Thank you.
Any further questions? Pettimossi?
Not a question, just a reminder to the commissioners that tonight's a committee meeting, of course, and so this would be something that we would request that you advance to the business meeting next week under, presumably it won't be on consent agenda, but for a vote. And, you know, that's where it would be acted on, one way or the other. Thank you, Commissioner Pepper.
Mr. Angel?
Thank you, Mr. Pepper. The one thing that the Fisher architect states in the last paragraph is we recognize the final selection is ultimately the decision of Kent County. So that even they know that we can make those changes based on what we've heard. I just want to remind everybody that they made that option also available to us to remind us. So thank you.
Thank you. If this is approved to go to the business meeting next week,
Yes.
I would recommend that any of you that have any commissioners that have any questions will have a week to get the answers to and come to the meeting next week and be ready to vote on this if we vote to take it forward tonight. Mr. Buxton.
This will be quick. I didn't know that. I thought it was coming up this evening. It's my fault. I can read the agenda, and I failed to look at the back. Had I known that, we'd have been done about 15 minutes ago. My apologies.
All right, unless there's any further questions, need to see hands to take this forward to the business meeting on the 29th next week. Five up, take it to business meeting.
Any public comments from the,
And any public comments from anyone in the audience or on the phone?
If any callers wish to address Levy Court at this time on the matter that was just reviewed, please press star one on your phone and we'll unmute you. We're seeing no callers. I'm not sure about in the audience if anyone.
Any public comments? Any public comments? Seeing none, we'll adjourn the Public Safety Committee for this evening, Mr. President.
thank you, Mr. Pepper. We'll now go to Community Services Committee, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Crouch is here to make a presentation. Go, Kim.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweeney. Good evening, Commissioners. In your packet, you received information regarding Central Square Technologies, also known as Superion, for their maintenance renewal. Central Square Technology provides software to the county for managing the parcel information, building permits, code enforcement, sewer permits, cash receipts, tax billing, and collection. The county pays an annual maintenance of this software, and the maintenance is due. The coverage period is October the 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. Attached in your packet, you did receive a copy of the quote, and the amount of this maintenance is $34,802.66. The funding source for the coverage is funded under the FY 2021 General Fund operating budget for Finance Planning Department. Please grant approval for this maintenance coverage. Any questions?
Thanks, Kim. So the $34,000 a year, and it has some software components that might be covered by MyGov. How would that be impacted? How is MyGov going to impact this contract?
Well, at some point, they do cross over because Superion does provide the software for sewer permits, building permits, as well as code enforcement. And so in our first phase, we plan to implement that with MyGov. And there'll be a period where we're continuing anything that's currently in Superion, we'll go ahead and close it out in Superion. And then eventually anything new will be in MyGov. So at some point, we would not pay maintenance for the Superion for those modules. And that's about a cost savings of about $10,000 for Superior.
Is
Now-
it conceivable that that's going to get done in the next year? Anything in Superior is going to be closed out?
I don't know that I can really say that because it really depends on the customer and when the customer comes back to, final out their building permit. I mean, I don't know what the average time frame is from the time they open it to the time they close it.
Is there a chance that anything that's in Superior can be moved to MyGov?
It could be, yes. If it's something that was just started, they could very easily then open a case in MyGov and finish it out there, yes. And that whole transition period, we still need to define and figure out what's the best way to go.
Do we know what the level of effort is to get that done? If we want to get off of Superior on at least most of these components?
The effort to go with MyGov or the effort to?
The effort to get everything out of Superior and move it to MyGov.
Well, I guess it really depends on how many building permits are actually open. And I don't really know that at this point. I know we do 3,000 building permits a year, and out of those 3,000, how many would still be open at the time we would go with MyGov? Not sure. But when we do go with My Government Online, there is also a cost incurred for the maintenance as well as the software lease. And that's done based on volume. And the volume for building permits and sewer permits, the cost is around $22,000 for that phase.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Crouch? Seeing none, move this forward to the consent agenda next week. Oh, well, 7 hands. Any public comments on this topic? Mr. Kennedy?
If anyone wishes to speak on this that's online, please press star 1. No?
Okay, seeing none. Thanks, Kim. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No public comments. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Public Safety, Mr. Pepper.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have one item on the agenda tonight from the Sheriff's Office. It's proposed policy amendments, use of sheriff vehicles, firearm policy, use of force, and transporting detainees. I believe we have Deputy Sheriff Chris White here.
Good evening.
You've got the floor.
We had several changes. The most notable that we've submitted was the prisoner transports, to delete that. Since our office has moved from the courthouse to the county building, I apologize for not having the exact number of years, but I'm going to say approximately a dozen years ago. We haven't done any prisoner transports since then. The other sheriffs in the other 2 counties also have not done them for about the same amount of time. That's the one with the most changes, again, deleting that we do the prisoner transports. Our vehicles, if we were asked to do it, aren't equipped. They're not cage cars. 2 of our deputies are currently in single cab pickup trucks. It's not conducive to have prisoners sitting in the same seat as the operator of the vehicles. Also, there's been no training as far as county training to the county deputies since that time, as far as any kind of updates on prisoner transport training. So,
Mr. Angel has questions.
I don't have a problem with most of the changes in here except for one, and that is the elimination of the county administrator as one of the designees to be notified. And the reason being is he's our chief for us, and the lawyer that we hire works well with Mr. Pettimage, our county administrator, and the sheriff and Mr. Cuela. You're eliminating part of the protocol of the chain of command, and our chain of command is what we stand on. So if he's not put back in at the top, I will not be voting for this.
yes, sir.
Mr. Buxton.
I was going to ask you, and that kind of helps. What in here, so it's got a lot going on in there, and that's okay. And I think that you know your world better than I do, and the sheriff is elected to run his shop, but the reality is you have to come in here and ask for a policy change, and that's all good, but I'll look at it. And the question I have, is there anything that jumps out, obvious to you, that's not just clarifying things or modernizing things? Is there anything in there that's a change that has some kind of significance? I'm not quite sure what he said, but that rings a bell as being significant. Do you know of anything? I'm not asking you to know what I'm talking about, but is there anything that's obvious?
There's nothing that's obvious to me in reference to your question on the county administrator being removed from the contact in that protocol. I'm not familiar with anything in regards to that, why it was not included in that.
Maybe I can. Mr. Pettit-Demage, were you aware of the change? Do you have any familiarity with it?
Yeah, I am, and I did question Mr. Quayle, who wrote this up on that point, but, you know, as it appears, yeah, I do think as whoever the county administrator is essentially the manager for Levy Court, the day-to-day, and the link between the staff and the Levy Court, and even the row offices in Levy Court. So I think it is right and proper that the county administrator be notified on some of the notification requirements here. That, for instance, this deals with incidents that happen in the department, and it's basically a reporting mechanism. That's all. So it's in there today, but it was proposed to be deleted.
Reason why? And I'm not asking you to explain it. Just maybe find that out, right? We can move on it with that as a, you know, for me personally, a strike through unless it can be presented as obvious as to why it needs to be taken out. The only other thing, and then I'll stop, it jumps out as mentioning firearms quite a bit. And I had a call from somebody, and I said, well, you know, my understanding is that that's not new. There's nothing really new. They're clarifying, changing some language, but there's not any real new language in there about gun-toting sheriffs making criminal arrests, you know. And I hate to be so bland, but that's a coffee shop conversation that I had to answer.
Correct. The language was changed. I don't know when the policy was first formed. I've been here 12 years. In my opinion, only the policy was most likely copied off of a law enforcement agency's policy, i.e. a police department's policy. The biggest changes to that firearms policy is changing it from officer to deputies. The other large clarification on that was the firearms instructor versus the deputy range instructor. So we currently use a firearms range instructor that's certified to do that. He is not a county employee. He is a retired Dover City police officer, and he has the credentials to teach that class. He's retired from the City of Dover Police Department, and he's assisted us for years in that. So that's
more than explaining. I just stated for it was actually somebody from the press who was not writing an article, but just questioning, wondering about the agenda item. So, you know, if they're looking at it, they want clarification. It's all good. I'll end with the last one, maybe the only one that has strike through. The only concern I have, and my understanding is that it hasn't been done in a long time, that we wake up, we adopt this, wake up, and the next thing you know, the Capitol Police are very upset with us because we've eliminated a long-standing policy of working with them. I just want to I understand we haven't done it in a long time. I just don't want, I don't want anybody to get a call saying, you know, why'd you guys strike that through or something? I want to strike it through because you guys want it, and I think you should run your department. But there is this old marriage, and I want to make sure that we don't, you know, kick it. So what am I asking for? Maybe just, if I'm just presenting it to you. I'm still ready to move forward. Okay?
Commissioner Angel?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pepper, Commissioner Pepper. A lot of these were done in 2000 and 2002, according to what I'm reading on my document here. But once again, as a chair of administration, one thing I want to make sure is chain of command is followed. That's what we all have agreed to, and we put that in place. Mr. Quayla puts out a chain of command hierarchy of personnel, and to take him out of take our county administrator out of that, to me, it's not doable on my part for what we should be doing. But also, as I stated previously, is we hire the lawyer. He works with Mr. Pettermage and the county and the Human Resource Department and anybody else that he deemed fit, and I think that needs to be kept in there for wherever that's been struck out, including in the vehicles and on accidents on the last page. It's been removed also, that the county administrator is not notified. So anywhere where it's been struck out, I think the county administrator needs to be put back on for the chain of command, as I said, and the way we operate.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Sweeney?
I see the sheriff back there. Is the sheriff going to speak, Chris?
It's Deputy Mutter, and
Oh, sorry.
I don't
These
believe.
masks.
Yes, sir.
Is the sheriff on board with all this?
He was when it was presented to me. I can make him aware of what was said this evening.
Okay. So given that he's not aware of the changes that Commissioner Angel has requested, do we not want to put this on a consent agenda, put it on the new business for next weekend? That way, please ask the sheriff to be here, or at least to send you as his advocate to speak to any concerns he has. I personally don't have any concerns with it. I think most of the discussions we had about transporting detainees already occurred years ago with Capitol Police and with the courts, and they kind of know that's coming, so this is just all paperwork to us.
Yes, sir. If I can explain for the sheriff this evening, they have a new academy class for corrections, and I believe you're all aware he's a trainer for that
No,
organization.
you're good. No, I completely trust you to present what is wanted, so I appreciate what you're doing and what you're here for.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just take the message back. It's not a hostile
Yes, yes, sir.
conversation at all.
Yes, understood.
No, he's saying, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
No, I understand what you're saying, sir.
Any other questions? Commissioner President Banta?
Mr. Pepper, just a couple things I made note on, but I think you've pretty well cleared that up. I was going to ask you a little bit about the use of a deadly and non-deadly force, and also to give us an example under the first section 13-2. But I think you've sort of covered that, provided that we include the Director of Personnel and the County Administrator in this document, because at the end of the day, all of us turn to him for the lead, and he is the one that makes the final decision with our authority. But at the end of the day, they need to be in there someplace for verification, for final analysis on anything that might be of question. So I don't think the sheriff wants that responsibility either, so it should fall on the shoulders of the county administrator as well. So as long as you clear that up, I'm good. You did a good job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? If not,
I had one.
oh,
Just trying to make
Awesome.
sure I understand, Mr. Angel. With respect to use of sheriff's vehicles and there is an accident, as it stands now, the reporting goes to the sheriff and to the personnel office. This clarifies it, the personnel director and the sheriff. You want the county administrator in there?
Well, that would be consistent with everything else, yes.
Not as to reporting of accidents, that's my point.
Exactly. Our county administrator should know about it because you're our lawyer and you'll be contacted, and he needs to contact us to keep us informed, so that the communication cycle needs to be 360 degree.
I understand. I'm just drawing a distinction between the other one actually takes out the county administrator. This change does not. That may be a distinction without a difference, and it sounds like it is. Thank you.
Okay, it sounds like we want to take this to next meeting, but not to the consent. Okay, hands up for that, in favor of that. 7 up, and any public comments? Any public comments?
If there are any callers on the line who wish to speak on this item, please press star 1 on your phone. We'll unmute you. Seeing none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. No public comments in the room or on the line. The Public Safety Committee will adjourn. Mr. President. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. At this juncture, we have no executive session. Is that correct?
That's correct.
With that being said, the committee meeting is now adjourned.
What time is it? Oh.
Conference recording has stopped.
Oh, thank you.
Original signature, I'm gonna ask him to sign this version too and send it back to us.
Oh, okay.
That's a fax of yours.
I'll go ahead and scan this in. You can date it for today, right?
So no, actually, we
No?
want to be dated as of the 15th.
Oh, okay. So I'll put 15th day.
Start applying the $3